Saturday the 2nd of May was quite a significant day, in the sense that it was the first time I had seen an excursion train in my local area for a staggering 14 years. On this occasion, the Glenbrook Vintage Railway was doing the honours, using their diesel locomotives DC 4818 and DBR 1254, or as I sometimes call them, Maxine and Mickey. Please check this video's description if you want context behind those nicknames. Incidentally, the recent excursion with 1254 wasn't the first time I had seen a DBR in Tauranga. Back in May 2012, there were at least 3 occasions when DBR 1213 turned up round our way, one of which being this bizarre light engine run with DL 9193. And in November 2022, DBRs 1199 and 1282 were brought to Mount Maunganui as part of their journey, by rail and road, from Wellington to the Goldfields Railway in Waihi. As for the last time I saw a DC round here, that was in June 2025, when DCs 4853 and 4594 made 2 visits, 1 week apart, on the regular Metroport container trains, which are normally hauled solely by the newer DL locomotives. Initially, I caught the excursion out at the crossing loop in Te Puna. Quite appropriately for a train involving this specific DBR, they showed up at precisely 12:54 PM. Seeing as Tauranga doesn't have a railway station anymore, Glenbrook's mainline diesels had to stop in the loop at Dive Crescent and unload the passengers there instead. People who came down from Glenbrook and Hamilton had a few options. They could either ride a bus down to Rotorua, where they would go for a trip on the Lakeland Queen paddle steamer, have some free time in Tauranga, or go on a different bus over to the Classic Flyers Aviation Museum, which is a stone's throw away from our city's airport. In the meantime, the DC and DBR ran 2 side trips for the locals, with one going over to Mount Maunganui and the other to Whatakao, the latter being a crossing loop close to the eastern portal of the Kaimai Tunnel. The main excursion from Glenbrook and the 2 side trips sold out less than 48 hours after the tickets were first announced. In theory, I think I could have travelled on both side trips with DC 4818 and DBR 1254, but I only went on one because, believe it or not, I've already ridden along the Tauranga to Mount Maunganui section, or the Dodgy Horseshoe as I call it. This wasn't on the old Jazz Festival excursions with Steam Incorporated and JA 1271, but rather a normal weekend in July 2011, when I was very lucky to get a cab ride with DC 4790, which was running back-to-back with DFT 7322. The DFT has since been redesignated as a DFB, and is normally running between Wellington and Masterton these days. Meanwhile, kiwirail's DL 9567 was parked near the turntable in Mount Maunganui, and got a good view of DC 4818 and DBR 1254 as they ran around their train for the return trip to Dive Crescent. After the first lot of passengers disembarked, the crew went through the coaches with what appeared to be either a vacuum cleaner or a rubbish bag, and it wasn't until around 10 minutes before the scheduled departure time when people were allowed to board for the journey to Whatakao. For reference, a ticket on this excursion cost $40, and I made the booking less than half an hour after tickets were announced. Incidentally, and by comparison, the route add-ons in Train Sim World 6 tended to cost either $57 or $64 these days, so do with that information what you will. The excursion had to wait for DL 9262 to show up with train 483 from Kinleith, that's the industrial site south of Tokoroa, and once the single track section ahead was clear, we pulled away from Dive Crescent for the journey to Whatakao.
Good afternoon everybody, and welcome on board the Kaimai Express with the Glenbrook Vintage Railway. Just wanted to say how pleased we are to finally be able to get our train over here to the Bay of Plenty. No sort of mean feat getting it through the tunnel, not the least of which is finding a slot in between the freight trains to get it over here. My name is Glenn, I'm your guard this afternoon in charge of overall train safety, and if I can have your attention for a moment, I do just have a short safety briefing to go through with you. Starts off like this: in the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow all instructions of your train crew. If you do need to stop the train yourself in an emergency, please pull the emergency brake lever that you will find located at each end of your carriage. If you activate the emergency brake, please remain beside it until you have been seen by a member of train crew. Under New Zealand law, smoking, vaping, the use of and charging of e-cigarettes is strictly prohibited on board this train in all areas on board here, including the open balconies and the lavatories. On the note of the open balconies, if you are seated in the wooden carriages, you do have balconies at the end of each carriage which you are welcome to stand on. Likewise, if you are in the steel-bodied carriages, you are welcome to move through the train and go and stand on these balconies if you would like. Do ask please that out of respect to your fellow passengers that you do let everybody have a chance. If the balcony is getting full and you've been out there for a while, please return to your seat and let someone else have a fair go. If you are walking through the train, we do ask please that you do not stand on the gangways. These are the bridge pieces in between the carriages. You may walk across these, but please do not stand on them. Likewise, if you are on the balconies or indeed in the wooden carriages, please keep all body parts inside the train. There is vegetation and infrastructure near the track, and we do not want you getting hit by that. Finally, for your comfort and convenience, we do have a toilet located in each carriage of the train here for you. And also you will find that we have a bar and servery area open at the end of car F. So car F is the first of the steel carriages in the direction of travel at the moment. So if you're in the wooden carriages or indeed car E, you will need to come up towards the locomotive end of the train, so come towards the direction of travel, or if you're further back in the train, go towards the rear of the train. But once more, on behalf of the Glenbrook Vintage Railway and our fairly large crew that we have on board here today, I'll try and remember to name them all. We've got Paul, Sean, Graham, Natalie, Ray, Ruben, Tim, Waki, Jaden and Kat, Nigel, and I can guarantee you I've forgotten somebody. But yeah, any questions or anything, if you do have any questions or anything like that you want to ask us, please feel free to tap anybody on the GBR uniform on the shoulder. We're more than happy to answer any questions. But once more, sit back, relax and enjoy yourselves on our way through to Whatakao. I have been informed that it is a nice clean run through to Whatakao this afternoon. We don't have any crossings. The log train that just went through, I believe, was the train that we were scheduled to be crossing, so it should be a nice smooth journey through to just outside of the tunnel.
Seeing as I didn't go on the Jazz Festival excursions in 2010 or 2011, this was the first time I had ever actually ridden along the main line out of my home city. It was quite surreal to see lots of familiar locations from this new perspective. Not much further up the line, we ran past the kiwi fruit packing plant in Apata. In addition to the scenery, not to mention traffic congestion on State Highway 2, this region of New Zealand is known for its kiwi fruit production, and I've heard the somewhat nearby town of Te Puke being described as the kiwi fruit capital of the world. For reference, Te Puke is around 25 kilometres southeast of central Tauranga. Apata is fairly close to the crossing loop at Whatakao, where we arrived after around 35 minutes of travel time, a shorter journey than what I was expecting. In any case, this crossing loop is reasonably close to the Kaimai Tunnel, which, at 8.879 kilometres long, is the longest railway tunnel in New Zealand. The tunnel opened in 1978 as part of a deviation for the East Coast Main Trunk, whose original alignment went through the towns of Katikati and Waihi before traversing the Kaurangahake Gorge, changing direction in the town of Paeroa and heading down to Hamilton. Most of the old line has since closed, but a 6-kilometre long section of track between Waihi and Waikino was preserved, and is now known as the Goldfields Railway. As our train came to a stop at Whatakao, numerous passengers, including me, noticed a couple of car wrecks, and I thought they wouldn't look out of place at Horopito Motors, which is down in the central North Island near the town of Ohakune. Before DBR 1254 and DC 4818 could run around their train, they had to wait for DL 9521 to pass by. On this occasion, the DL was hauling MP4, a container train from Tauranga to Auckland. Another freight train passed by before we could leave Whatakao and return to Tauranga. The good thing is that we ended up leaving the crossing loop on time, and had a similarly quick journey back to the city. If I remember correctly, it took us around 36 minutes to get back to Dive Crescent from Whatakao. As for any closing thoughts on this excursion, well, for one thing, I'm quite impressed with the GVR and kiwirail for managing to arrange it in the first place, given how busy the East Coast Main Trunk tends to be with freight trains, not to mention the Kaimai Tunnel needing to be cleared for 60 minutes before an excursion can go in. Considering the fact that these side trips sold out so quickly, that leaves me feeling hopeful for more visits from DC 4818 and DBR 1254 in the future. And who knows, maybe we could also see excursions from Steam Incorporated or mainline Steam. Anyway, I can summarise my thoughts on the trip to Whatakao in early May 2026 with just 6 words. That was $40 well spent.